It is currently week 17 of the NFL season, and there are two divisions that have no winning teams. After both the AFC and NFC South have been absolutely atrocious at football this year, fans are coming out on social media and calling out the NFL to make some changes to the NFL seating and formatting for the playoffs. The most common argument that I see is a lot of fans wanting them to head in the direction of the NBA, or at least the old NBA before the play-in tournament, when they would take the top 8 teams from each conference, regardless of division, and strictly go by record and send those teams to the playoffs. But instead, the playoffs right now, they send the 4 division winners, and then recently they just made it the next 3 best records, which is a total of 7 teams, which ironically was a big complaint from a lot of sports or football fans because they felt some teams were getting snubbed. And since fans do nothing but complain, here we are again. They're calling for action to change the playoff seeding again. And it makes sense because realistically, you should have the best teams in the playoffs. But is it really the big deal that they get a bid? So that's what I'm going to dive into today. I took 4 different scenarios where a team had a better record than a division winner or a team that was snubbed from the playoffs. I'm sure there's more scenarios where this has happened. Including the 1982 lockout season. I didn't include that because shortened season, a long time ago, football that I didn't watch. So I tried to find the most relative ones in recent memory. So the first one that I'm going to dive into is the 2008 season. So in 2008, rather than the 11-5 Patriots and the 9-7 Jets making the playoffs, the 8-8 Chargers were the lowest seeded playoff team because they won the AFC West. And that year, the Matt Castle-led Patriots were led out of the playoffs due to a conference record tiebreaker, the 4th tiebreaker actually, with the Dolphins and the Ravens. They all had an 11-5 record. That year, they were top 10 in both scoring defense and offense. They were 8th at both respective sides of the ball. And on the other side, the 9-7 Jets, led by Brett Favre, finished 3rd in the AFC East behind the Patriots. So obviously if the Patriots didn't make it, Jets aren't going to make it. They had the 9th best scoring offense and the 18th best scoring defense in the league. So those are 2 solid teams that missed the playoffs that year. Let's go and look at the Chargers. The San Diego Chargers.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
The first team to never have a winning record until after the playoffs started. Chargers had the 2nd best scoring offense in the whole entire league that year, ahead of the 2 teams that we just mentioned. And if that isn't enough to convince you that the Chargers may have been a better team than the ones that were snubbed, let's go look back at week 3 and week 5 of the 2008 NFL season, where the Chargers beat both of them by more than 2 scores. Obviously, the Chargers were a way better team than their record suggested, so that's why when they met the 12-4 Colts in the wild card round, they beat them in overtime, 17-23. San Diego would then go on to lose to the eventual Super Bowl champion, the Pittsburgh Steelers, in the divisional round. Fast forward 2 seasons to the 2010 season, we have the 7-9 Seattle Seahawks. They beat out 2 teams in the playoffs who both had a 10-6 record. First of which being the New York Giants, the team with the tied for the 7th best scoring offense and a 17th ranked scoring defense, finished 2nd in the NFC East behind the Eagles, again due to a tiebreaker. The other team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, finished 3rd in the NFC South behind the Falcons and the Saints, more on that later. The 20th ranked scoring offense, led by Josh Freeman, was carried by the 9th ranked scoring defense in the league to a 10-6 record as well. So 2 teams that were basically the opposite of each other were beat out by the Seattle Seahawks, who had an unimpressive 23rd ranked scoring offense and a 25th ranked scoring defense throughout the whole league. If you look back into the regular season of that year, they were decimated by both teams that they beat out for the playoffs. They straight up looked like they were not a good team. However, that would change in the wild card round against the Saints because they would go on to defeat the defending Super Bowl champions 41-36 in the game best known for the Beast Quake, because what is a historic loss without the Saints being on the losing end? But then after that, the Seahawks would then go on to lose to the Bears in the divisional. The score looked kind of close, but really, they got stopped. And then only 4 years later, we would see the 7-8-1 Carolina Panthers make the playoffs over only one more team in the NFC. And that team was the San Francisco 49ers, whose 25th ranked scoring offense would hold back the 10th overall scoring defense. They would finish the year with an 8-8 record and a playoff trip only to their couch because the Panthers were 7-8-1 and they won their division. The Panthers had the 19th ranked scoring offense and the 21st ranked scoring defense in the league. A year before their 15-1 season, the Panthers would become the second ever sub-500 team to make the playoffs and the first ever NFC South team to win their division in back-to-back seasons. What a shit division. This mediocre playoff team would face a Cardinals team who was down to their fourth string quarterback in Jeff Lindley. Who? They would go on to win that game 27-16, but if Carson Palmer was still there, I doubt this would have been the same, but it's a playoff win regardless. Then they would go on to get stomped by the NFC champions of that year, the Seattle Seahawks. Now, if you didn't remember any of the previous ones happening, then I'm sure you'll remember this one because it's still fresh in our minds. 2020, the NFC East was decided in the last week of the season. The nameless Washington football team would win their division at 7-9. They beat out only one team in the 8-8 Arizona Cardinals, led by Pro Bowl COD player Kyler Murray. The Cardinals seemed like a little bit of an above average team, 13th ranked scoring offense and the 12th ranked scoring defense. Not too shabby. They started off 6-3, but then they lost D-Hop for the season, which probably led to their skid, leading them to get snubbed in favor of the NFC East champs. The football team was the most recent sub-500 division champ and the third ever. They were led to playoffs not by their 25th ranked scoring offense, but their 4th ranked scoring defense. Their season was actually pretty historic. This was the same season that Alex Smith made his insane comeback from a life-threatening injury, and the unexpected legend of Taylor Heinicke was born. The former journeyman and XFL quarterback Taylor Heinicke was put in the game after Dwayne Haskins was benched. He won the final game of the season and put the football team in the playoffs, and he made his first start against the eventual Super Bowl champions, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. So obviously, we know how that goes. While they may have been the only sub-500 team to not win their playoff game, they were still super competitive in their spot. They gave the Bucs a run for their money, and Taylor Heinicke cemented himself as a legend in the eyes of Washington and basically any football fan. So based on the track record of bad teams making the playoffs just because they've won their division, it's actually pretty good. But is that enough to keep letting these poor teams, just because they win their division, into the playoffs? Well, with these previous seasons in mind, let's go look at the current season this year. Right now, it's looking like the winners of the AFC and NFC South are both going to finish as the Jaguars and the Buccaneers. The Jaguars have had some terrible losses, some amazing wins, and some overall competitive games with quality opponents. Are they a playoff team? Right now, the only team that they have a worse record than that is in the playoffs are the Ravens and the Dolphins. They beat the Ravens, whether that had to do with injuries or not, and the Dolphins are on a terrible skid right now. They're in a bad slump. Tua just got his 3rd concussion. So is it unfair to put the Jags in the playoffs? I don't think so. They're heating up as of late. I think this is a fine team to put in the playoffs, but I don't really think that is what fans are necessarily complaining about. I think fans are more so complaining about the NFC South and how ass they are. The Saints and the Panthers still haven't been mathematically eliminated.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
But they're basically eliminated because I don't think Tom Brady and the Bucs are going to lose 2 more games this year. So with the Bucs probably being in the playoffs, do they deserve it? If they had any other quarterback aside from Tom Brady, I'd probably say no. But they have Tom Brady. He is a 7-time Super Bowl champ. you've seen the Patriots struggle in the regular season, and when he was there, he just enters this mode, just playoff mode. It's like playoff Braun, and he just leads them to the Super Bowl. He's been to like damn near 100 Super Bowls. So this season, the Bucks don't necessarily deserve it, but these other teams in the past, they didn't deserve it either. But without this rule in place, some of the most historic playoff moments won't happen. And I am 100% talking about the Beast Quake right now, as it haunts me every day as a Saints fan. But God, that is one of the greatest playoff moments in history. One of the greatest runs, if not the greatest run of all time. So without bad teams getting into the playoffs, bad division winners getting into the playoffs, history doesn't happen. We might not even know who Taylor Heineke is if the football team doesn't get into the playoffs in 2020. So in my opinion, with all of these teams getting in the past and kind of shaking up the playoffs, I don't think that the NFL should change their playoff seeding or their format. Maybe the seeding, don't give these bad division winners a home game, but it's happened so many times in the past, and for years it's happened. I don't think that they should change it anytime soon. Maybe it's unfair, but life's unfair. I'm perfectly fine with the current playoffs. If you disagree, that sucks, but I don't think that it happens often enough for the NFL to put in a rule change, and I think they already would have thought about that. So final answer, no, I don't think that the NFL should change their playoff format.